What's up, everybody? Paul here from the Hoops Crew, and today we are now just a couple of weeks away from our opening round clash against the Lions, and I want to start really ramping up the excitement for season 2025. If you've been tuning already, the chaps have been doing their things. I've debuted the Paul James Show. Post-game live has already played out for the first time this year, and we've got lots and lots of content coming down the pipeline for you to enjoy. But today, I want to kind of, focus on a little list of sorts. I've been kind of getting really excited for this season, as I'm sure you are as well. And I kind of identified a few players that I think are really primed for big breakout seasons, really notable breakout seasons. And while some of these players won't necessarily feature on the list all season long, I think this is going to be a really pivotal season for each of them in terms of their development and their journey towards being fixtures within the team in 2026 and beyond. Maybe even as soon as this year, depending on how successful this year plays out. So we're going to talk about 5 different players. There are some honorable mentions, and we can talk about those a little bit at the end. But we are going to talk about 5 players who I believe are the most likely to have breakout seasons for the Cats in season 2025. But before that, a word from our sponsor.
The Hoops Crew Media Network is proudly sponsored by Cyril Cook Florist, established in Geelong since 1915. Visit their website at www.cyrilcookflorist.com.au. That's Cook with an E. Give them a call on 035 222 2244 or mention the Hoops Crew to get yourself 20% off your next in-store purchase when you visit them at Shop 12, 11 Leather Street in Breakwater.
Thank you, Cyril Cook, as always. Now, let's begin this list by focusing on a player that if you've been tuning into all things Hoops Crew for a while, you know full well that I am a big fan of and think has a bucket load full of potential. Let's begin by today talking about Mitch Nevitt, who there's been some reports about, of course, through the off-season. For me, that's very, very exciting because I am such a big fan of this guy. I think what he brings is a lot of versatility, not necessarily to the levels of a Mark Blicavs. I think he's a little bit more traditional and conventional than Mark Blicavs. He's not the unicorn that people have described him as, but he does have some height. He has inside ball winning ability. He's got good, strong hands. He's demonstrated that on a few occasions. That vice-like grip that Ben likes to talk about whenever he talks to me about Mitch Nevitt is something that really impresses me. I think he plays a good inside and out game, and he's got a pretty good sense of disposal from everything that I've seen. And he really kind of put that on show a little bit through some key moments during the Geelong and Hawthorn scratch match the other day. Mitch Nevitt, I think, is one that has been doing his time in the seconds. And when he has gotten these opportunities to play for the Cats, the primary AFL team, I feel like he's not been given, I guess, the license to go off and do his own thing. And so the thing that has kind of excited me the most this year is that in this preseason period, he's been training a lot as an inside midfielder. And for me, that kind of gives him some role clarity. And when he does get that opportunity to play in the firsts, I should say, regardless of how many games that is, he comes in knowing his role. He knows what is expected of him. He doesn't need to worry about being on the wing. He doesn't need to worry about, coming off half back at different points. It's very clear. It's very defined. And I'm not saying this because I think he's a dumb footballer, because I don't think he is at all. But when you're a young player who's trying to establish themselves, role clarity really helps. And so I think this is a big thing for him. And I expect that it's going to trigger a really big season for him as well. Will he be doing an Ollie Dempsey? I mean, maybe not. Will he be Lawson Humphries? Maybe not. More on Lawson shortly. But I think we can expect really, really big things. I think the growth that we see from Mitch Nevitt this year is going to be really substantial. And I think that's going to bode really well for the future. I'm excited about him. I hope you are too. You've certainly heard me talk about him a lot over the years. But let's move on to our second player here, who is, the level of importance around this guy, considering recent departures from the club, is huge. And I think there's expectation and concerns that follow Shannon Neal in terms of not concerns through, he's not up to it, but more, is he going to be ready when we need him to be ready? And all signs, and again, I think it's very important we put the lens here over the top of this, which is all clubs talk about their players in the best possible way during the preseason. They're trying to pump them up. They're trying to get them in a good headspace. They're trying to put out some great optics for media, for fans. They're trying to present very well for the opposition, get them thinking about things. Of course, there's that lens that we need to put over all of this. But Shannon Neal has been developing in ways that have really impressed me over the course of 2024 when he had the opportunity to step up to the plate in the absence of Tom Hawkins. And I think through this preseason, we're hearing that he's continuing to bulk up, he's getting stronger. And I think that's going to be huge for him because he's got a massive height advantage that he can leverage. And if he can get that strength up, if he can get that core going, and if he, again, a bit like Mitch Nevitt, if he has really clear role clarity, I think he can really thrive this year. The fact that he knows now that he is the go-to guy when it comes to our full forward position. Of course, he's still got Jeremy Cameron around there, and Jeremy Cameron is the superstar of the forward line. And he knows that I think going into it, he's number 2 in that respect. But as our, I guess, key future prospect and the guy that we're expecting to come leading out of the goal square, he is that guy. He knows that now. And I think that is going to be enormous for him. He's not having to look over his shoulder to see if Tom Hawkins is on the way back. He can go out and do his own thing. He's built up his body even further. He's got that role clarity. He's working more now on a one-to-one basis with Jeremy Cameron, and they're developing their own level of cohesion that he just wouldn't have had in that second half of the season because everything had been developed around Jeremy Cameron and Tom Hawkins. And then he kind of came in and filled in. And that's very, very hard for any player of any level of experience to do, let alone a player like Shannon Neal. And so I'm really confident that this year is a big breakout year for him. Do we expect him to push the top end of the Coleman? Absolutely not. Again, when you've got Jeremy Cameron there, you have to accept that you're probably going to be playing number 2. But I think it's pretty fair and reasonable to assume that we can mark him down for a goal and a half a game on average. And so we're talking about 35, 36 goals for the year just when we talk about the home and away season, let alone whatever happens if we make a finals tilt. And I think that's where I'd really love to see him shine the most. He did a good job through the final series, but didn't necessarily hit the scoreboard in the capacity that we'd love for a player who's stepping into the Tom Hawkins role. But he's now been there. He's experienced it. He understands what it's about. And I think he's going to be much better for that as well. So I think Shannon Neal is one of those top 5 that is going to have a breakout season in 2025. Next up is a player that we've been looking forward to making the next step for a couple of years now. He came across to the Cats with a bit of a profile behind him. And no, I'm not talking about Bailey Smith because I think that's fairly well documented. And I think that would be too obvious an answer in this particular one, coming off an ACL and all the history that's kind of followed Bailey Smith. He's too obvious of an answer here to kind of focus on. I want to think a little bit more grassroots. I want to think a little bit more up and coming, younger, less proven at this particular point. And that's where Tanner Bruhn comes in, who obviously came with some hype and anticipation when he made his way over to the Cats from the GWS Giants. But he was still very young. He's still very raw. He's still developing his game. He's then moved to a new club. There was a lot of, a little bit of fuss about the guy when he came across the Cats too. And so I'm sure that takes a little bit of time to grapple with. He's also trying to find his way in a team that consists of Paddy Dangerfield, of a Max Holmes, of a Cam Guthrie, Mark Blitzarves, Tom Stewart then started spending time in there. Lots of experienced bodies around him who've been there and been doing it for quite some time. But his body's building. His capacity is building. And I think the thing that's been kind of missing for Tanner Bruhn over the course of season 2024 was consistency across the full 4 quarters of a match. Now, he would get lesser game time. The Cats have always done a very good job of managing the younger bodies as well as some of the older ones and kind of massaging those minutes and, giving these players ample time to recover so they can play large amounts of football over the entirety of their career, let alone the fact that Tanner also battled a couple of injuries along the way. Nothing major, but nagging ones and ones that would come along at just a bad time when he started to build up a head of steam. This year, all positive talk about his fitness in the off-season. Hopefully he can kind of maintain that clean bill of health and not get those, collision-based injuries or not, tweak any muscles or anything like that. And he can just go about his business. And if he can, I think we can see a Tanner Bruhn who is going to be really quite dominant and has the opportunity to really thrive when all the attention is, for fairly obvious reasons, going to go to Smith, to Holmes, to Dangerfield, to Tom Stewart if he's there, to Mark Blitzarves. There's so many players that are going to attract attention. He's not going to get number 1, maybe not even number 2. He might get the number 3 or 4 midfielder. And for him, that's a huge opportunity to go and assert himself. That's what strong teams have. Are players that are, maybe 3rd, 4th, 5th in line even, that can take on the opposition and beat them more often than not. And I back him in to be able to do that and very quickly rise through the ranks and gather that esteem that I think so many Geelong supporters hold him in. He's a fantastic player. It's just going to take some time to develop his game and develop that consistency. And I think for him, consistency has been the issue. And in 2025, he'll develop that. We're talking 20 plus disposals a game, where sometimes he would have those games where he's, mid to low teens. those kind of more forgettable ones. I don't think we're going to see too many forgettable ones. We're going to see consistency this year from Tanner Bruin. I'm really excited to see that. I'm sure you are too. And I mean, he's hoping he delivers, right? The next player is one of our two big recruits from, like draftees, I should say, from the last season. Not our most recent draft, but the one before. There's been a lot said about this individual. He's also had a ripping performance recently in the the Indigenous All-Stars team. That is, of course, Lawson Humphreys, who absolutely tore it up in that match, had 20 disposals alongside some of the best Indigenous players of this game. Not just, parts of Australia. This is like the best players from the Indigenous side in the country, all in one team, and he was one of the best on field. It was an incredible performance from him. His poise, his consistency is absolutely astounding. He got 20 disposals on limited minutes because they are rotating all players through. They're all looking after everyone, making sure everyone comes out with a good bill of health before the season proper. Despite that, 20 disposals, great in set marking game. I was so thrilled to see what he did. It was amazing, and I'm so keen to see how Lawson Humphreys develops further over the course of 2025. He will be a staple of our half-back line, and I hope to see more epic goals like that one against Adelaide from last year, which was fantastic. It was obviously his first goal. It came at a really great time. He's just so consistent already. It's crazy how good this guy is, despite the lack of football that he's played at the highest level. He just fits straight away. And I expect that to develop. He'll catch more attention from the opposition players this year because he's got that, left and right side. He attracts the ball. He reads the ball very well. He's class. He is pure class. And that's going to earn him some attention. But I think he's more than capable of working his way through that. And with the support of some experienced heads around him, the Zach Guthrie's, the Tom Stewarts of the world, he's going to be just fine. So I'm really excited to see how Lawson Humphreys develops over the course of this year. The other draftee from that same selection is Connor O'Sullivan. There's been a lot said about him, a lot recently also about the Mark Blitzar's qualities that he has, that he might be our next unicorn as well, which is kind of crazy that we might have two of these in the same club. Not many other clubs have players such as Mark Blitzar's. We might have Mark and now Connor O'Sullivan coming through as well. He's got height. He's got athleticism. He's got speed. He's got ball delivery. He's probably a better deliverer of the ball than Mark Blitzarves, with that kind of consistent footballing life that he's had, as opposed to Mark, who'd been obviously in the steeplechase and doing a whole bunch of other things in the athletics world for a period there where football was less of a priority. Connor, it's always been there. And he's got that versatility that Mark has as well. So I'm really excited to see how he continues to blossom over the course of this year. I've heard particularly strong things about Connor O'Sullivan in this off-season period, and I'm super hopeful that he can deliver on all of that promise over the course of season 2025. I expect him to play at least a dozen games over the course of the year. There's a strong push, at least social media-wise and kind of within the media, that he's there for round one or opening round. Whether that comes to be, I don't know. But I think as soon as there's an opportunity for him, whenever that comes, he will take it with both hands, and he will be a force to be reckoned with very, very soon. Will he be the sort of player who's instantly up in lights in just his second season? I don't necessarily think so, but I think he's going to make some big strides this year that are really going to impress the coaches, impress the fans, and then 2026 and beyond is the moment where he really lights it up. Connor, we believe in you. We can't wait to see more of you. And that wraps this one up. Those are my 5 players that I'm tipping to have breakout seasons for the Cats in season 2025. There are absolutely some others. And of course, I alluded to Bailey Smith before. It was a little bit too easy. Jack Martin as well, if he can get a clean bill of health and have good fitness behind him, who knows what he's capable of over the course of the year as well. And there are so many other players who could make big strides this season. We could talk about Sam de Koning. There's Toby Conway and Mitch Edwards in the ruck as well. There's so many different players. Jai Clark, we cannot forget Jai Clark. I personally believe very, very strongly in the guy, and I just want to see his body develop, as well as develop that little bit of poise. I think the thing that's kind of been lacking for Jai Clark in his appearances so far is he's feeling a bit rushed, which is normal for a young player. I don't think there's anything unusual about it. What I want to see is more evidence of him being able to remain composed in the heat of the contest. And if he does that, he'll hit more of those targets and he'll start to really assert himself. He'll find more of the ball and things will just naturally improve. If you've got 5 players that you want to talk about as players that you think are going to have breakout seasons this year, please let me know in the comments. It'd be fantastic to hear your thoughts all about these young, up-and-coming players at the Cats It'd be really exciting to hear your thoughts. If you haven't already, check us out on socials. Paul James Games, you see my handle at the bottom there. Make sure to support the channel. You can do so in a whole range of different ways by subscribing to the channel, checking out our Patreon, and a whole bunch more. There's some awesome stuff there for you. There's exclusive content, early access content, and extended content that can be found only on our Patreon. The cost of $5 a month gets you in on that. So consider checking that one out. There's a whole bunch of other ways you can support us as well, via social media, via Patreon, via YouTube. Please consider lending us your support and just clicking onto the videos and checking out what we're doing. There's some awesome stuff, and I hope that you enjoy it. Thank you, as always, for checking this one out. You'll catch me again on Thursday night for the Paul James Show. Check out the chaps and what they're up to. Check out Ben with Postgame Live and the various other pieces of content that he's working on. Just the tip is... I can't do it. He's got a tipping show that's coming. Make sure to stay tuned for that, but I don't know if I can get the name right for the time being. Thank you very much for watching. Remain Geelong strong, and I will see you later.